I just got back from charging my Bolt EV on a Tesla Supercharger using my Lectron adapter here. And I did not expect to have this many thoughts. In fact, this is kind of why I didn't jump in and test it out as soon as this became available a couple weeks ago. I was kind of just a little blasé about the whole thing of opening up the supercharger access. However, once I got this adapter, started looking at what was available, and then tried it, yeah, I have a ton of thoughts. So I live in Pennsylvania, and that's on the East Coast of the United States. So in the East Coast of the United States, it is pretty sparsely populated with EVs, even here in 2024, and especially so in 2021 when I purchased my Bolt. And what that means is the charging infrastructure here is just not that well developed, especially the non-Tesla charging infrastructure, because most of the EVs have ended up being Teslas. And so when you are out there on a road trip, it has really felt like the Wild West. It's like the early days of gas stations is what I would imagine it's like, where you're out there running between 2 points that are 100 miles apart maybe in places. And if that location does not have fuel or electrons in this case, you're out of luck. You are not going to make it to the next location. So when you go out there, it's really an adventure, and it's felt that way. It's a little bit scary at times. You have all that range anxiety that some folks will have. For myself personally, I kind of enjoy it. It's just like a fun extra thing to challenge yourself and overcome as you're road tripping. That changed for me like around 2 weeks ago with the introduction of the Supercharger Network being open to General Motors vehicles, and in particular my 2020 Chevy Bolt. Overnight, the number of chargers, DC fast chargers that were available to charge my Bolt, it seems like it more than doubled in my area. And what this means is when I'm on a road trip, I now have many, many more options no matter where I go. There's been a few trips we've taken. We had to take my wife's Super Crosstrek just because there was not anything in that location except for Tesla Superchargers, so we didn't take the Bolt. We took the Subaru. And now it's like, well, those locations are obviously open. So when I look around the United States, suddenly I can go pretty much anywhere I want to. And I know all the Tesla folks out there are going to be laughing at me like, we've been able to do this forever. But I had some other thoughts, and it really comes down to just where we are in EVdom. So if you're in California, EVs are a substantial portion of the new vehicles sold. I think it's like 20-25% nowadays. Here it's relatively low. I think we're still in the single digits of sales. So we're at very low EV penetration. And there's two things people generally raise as barriers to them getting EVs. So the first one is range anxiety, and that's basically, can I go where I need to go? Does my car have the capacity? But then also, are the chargers in places where I can drive that distance easily with some backups and, just making it comfortable, there's a charger there. Think if the gas stations today were not at every exit, how much more anxiety would you have knowing that your gas stations were spaced 50 or 100 miles apart? For myself and all GM drivers and Ford and Rivian drivers today and everybody else in the future, I think this is largely a solved problem now. Yes, there are a ton more chargers going in with the NEVI funding, and I think that's great, but just today, by opening up the superchargers to everybody, all the EVs pretty much have access to a really, really comprehensive network, both with Tesla, EVgo, Electrify America, charge point units, etc. You have a great selection almost everywhere you go in the United States. So for general light duty vehicles, range anxiety isn't an issue anymore. Trucks, that's a different story. The second issue, and this isn't really addressed by the DC fast chargers or the superchargers, is that of charging where you park overnight. And this is important because running to the DC fast charger is not ideal for everyday usage. And just look at all my videos. I talk about that all the time. But I've had so many thoughts of just, it feels like a big watershed moment that I did not expect to feel this way, honestly. But it feels like the moment when things kind of tipped over this line from EVs being this niche thing that only the adventurous do to being something that pretty much everybody can do. And so I think this is a really cool year in that aspect, and I haven't really seen other people say it in this way, and it was just some thoughts I had. So for whatever it's worth, I don't normally make videos like this. Normally I'm talking about the charger I'm building for people who park on the street or multi-family units, things like that, where we don't have charging overnight. So that's the second issue, and that's really what my company Cool Street's working to address. So I have all kinds of videos on that. I'm talking about that all the time. But I wanted to address this because it really felt like a important moment, as I said, in EVdom. So I will see you guys in the next video.